So I could have it right in front of my face, and I just, so it's recorded. So before we get anyone willing to share something that popped in your brain about Mark that you like to share with us?
I thought about the urgency of Jesus at that time. We were reading about how he knew that they were coming for him, and it was urgent that he get them to understand his message.
Urgency.
Urgency.
Yeah.
And we're in urgency that we still have. Urgency to deliver the message to a person or to the world. Or
That's good, Tom. Word immediately was used a lot. Yeah. Jesus is in a hurry. What else? Something that
The continued cluelessness of the disciple, not just getting what's going on. And I'm not, if I was with them too, I'm not sure I'd get what was going on.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we could blame them, Jesus did do this, this, and this, and they're right there. But, sometimes Jesus does things all the time in our lives and clueless and stuff like that. Well, that's nice. You're being nice to them.
That's good, but what does it mean? We don't quite get.
Yeah.
I was kind of thinking that you might be able to believe what you're saying. I believe it. But do you understand it?
Mhm.
And I think that's where the fault lies.
Yeah, it's good, Dad. I might be able to believe it. Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
They were living in the political times, so I guess it was like they were blindly following. I wonder if they were clueless, but they were just following along.
Yeah.
Not even thinking about it.
It's good.
Well, I guess I hadn't realized how many times Jesus did miracles and then told people don't tell. And it seemed to me like a good lesson for today when we do something, we shouldn't try to draw the attention to ourselves, but rather to let God get the glory.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah. This is good, everyone. And whatever comes into your mind, that's important. Spirit of God is chatting with us about it. And I always think it's kind of fun because Mark was particularly written to Gentile believers like us. And so that's good. All right, well, I'm gonna once again, Becky and Ying, and Becky, your role when I share the screen. He's like, share the screen. You'll see some kind of ice glacier or something over there. Put that there.
Where did Inge go?
Oh, I lost Inge, didn't I?
Oh, there she is.
Oh, there she is.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to minimize it a little bit so that I can, but we'll figure it out. We'll work around it. All right, so we're moving on into the next section now. I want to let you know, last week we had a great discussion. We spent a lot of time talking about demons, and it was a good discussion. And you remember my disclaimer, just want to say it one more time. Okay. Pastor Roddy did not say everything is caused by demons. Okay. I'm sure I get that out there because it's all more complex. And y'all are smiling about this, but I know how this stuff can get around. There's not a demon behind every bush, but there could be one behind a couple of them. So, but it was great, good discussion. I'm glad because it should challenge our worldview, because that's what the book of Mark Scripture does to us. It challenges our worldviews, how we see reality. And so what we did, and so we are going to get to a couple of one passage that we started, that Jesus continues with this lesson that I want to just review. So at one point, Jesus is talking about before verse 14. this whole section about how the Pharisees and scribes were asking, okay, why are your disciples not washing their hands properly? And so like what they're supposed to do. And so Mark, because he knows he's writing to a Gentile audience, actually in verse 3 will even say, for the Pharisees and the Jews, do not eat unless they thoroughly wash their hands, thus observing the traditions of the elders. Notice he says the tradition of the elders. He doesn't say the Mosaic law, okay? And they do not eat anything from the marketplace unless they wash it. And there are many other traditions that they observe, the washing of cups, pots, and bronze kettles. And that's a clue to us that Mark's writing to a Gentile audience, because these were Jewish people. They would know exactly what's going on. And so basically, Jesus and these leaders are going to get into an interpretation discussion over tradition and law. And so the disciple, why do they not do that? Why not follow the tradition of the elders? We all know the word. It's not how you do it here, Jesus. This is not how we do it here, Pastor. Okay, there are some traditions here. And Jesus gets a little frustrated. He throws some scripture at them and basically says, Isaiah prophesied rightly about you hypocrites. I want you to understand that word hypocrites, it sounds really bad to us, but really what it means is that it's another way of talking about acting. Okay, I guess that doesn't make it sound any better, does it? You're just acting all this stuff out. And he pulls something from Isaiah, but a way to think about hypocrites is that you're just acting. But then Jesus says, okay, you emphasize this tradition that we're breaking. But then in verse 8, he says something really interesting. You abandon the commandment of God and hold to human tradition. Okay, what's he talking about? So then he goes in verse 9, says, you have a fine way of rejecting the commandment of God in order to keep your tradition. So he brings up, for Moses said, honor your father and mother. Whoever speaks evil for a mother must surely die. But you say that if anyone tells mother or father, so let's just say Carol's going to be my mom, okay? I say, Carol, say, Mom, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to do something really religious. The money that I was going to give to you for to take care of you when you're older, I'm going to give it to the temple. I'm going to give it to the temple.
What about me?
And so basically what he's saying, there's this act. And so, and the tribe starts, so you can do that because you're only giving it to God. And then Jesus says, wait a minute. So basically when whatever support you might you have for me is Corban, that is an offering to God. Then you no longer permit doing anything for father or mother, which is one of the big commandments. Okay, see what Jesus is doing here. You would emphasize these traditional interpretations of Moses' law, but you go right ahead and just knock out one, thus making void the word of God through tradition that you've handed on. And you do many things like this.
Many things.
So this is the context, okay?
You're lawyering
You're lowering.
the law.
Lawyering.
And
The law, you not heard that term, to lawyer the law?
Lloyd,
Yeah, yeah, because it's like I'm applying my legal knowledge to work the law so that this piece, which should apply, is canceled out and I can do this, or I can convince you that this is the better interpretation or whatever. I'm lawyering the law.
Sounds like there's a lot of that going on.
We do.
Yep.
And so let's go back to one thing too. Remember one of the things Jesus earlier on was talking about how is it okay to do good on the Sabbath? Yes, it's okay to do good on the Sabbath. So Jesus is trying to emphasize it's a good thing to take a mama and daddy. I don't think God's going to be upset that the money that you set for your parents, that you're going to help your parents on. And there's nothing wrong giving to God, but there is this requirement, and so if Dallas and Carol are my parents, and I'm like, well, hey, I'm loving God. Yeah, but you're leaving us out for nothing. What kind of good is that? So you got this set up, and then notice what he says, and you do many things like this. What are those things? Inquiring minds would like to know. Nullifying the Mosaic law, while emphasizing a tradition of the law that's not even in particularly the way we understand the law. So you see how it's working here? And so this is the setup. So then he comes in verse 14, and we're going to connect to what we read this coming week. They called the crowd again and said to them, listen to me, all of you.
Yeah, all of you.
All of you.
And understand. Okay, he's about to say something that's going to get him in trouble. There is nothing outside a person that going in can defile, but the things that come out are what defile. Okay. He is saying these external things are important, but that's not the real issue at him. Okay, so the crowd leaves. So now we're into the section. So remember we learned that Jesus loved to tell some parables. Leave the crowd wondering what's he talking about. And then he would get to his 12 disciples and go deeper into discussion. You remember that? And so he enters the house. His disciples ask him about the parable. He says, do you fail to understand?
Are you kidding me?
Do you not see that whatever goes, he's about to give a biology lesson.
It comes out.
And it's okay. Do you not see that whatever goes into a person from outside cannot defile, since it enters not the heart, but the stomach and goes into the sewer? I'm glad Jesus said it that way. He didn't go into more, potty language there. And he said, it's what comes out of a person that defiles. And so then Jesus starts listing some things that defile humans. For it's from within, from the human heart, that evil intentions come: fornication, theft, murder, adultery, avarice, wickedness, deceit, oh gosh, pronounce that for me, Rhonda.
Licentiousness.
Wonderful. Envy, slander, pride, folly. Thank you, Rhonda. All these evil things come from within, and they defile a person. Now, Mark is trying to get, now the Christians in Rome are like, okay, yeah. We can all agree with this, Gentiles and Jews here. What do y'all think? Anything profound with what Jesus said? Most of us grew up knowing this. But he does say this stuff can defile us. And what comes from the human heart? Evil intentions. From deep within us, outwardly comes the actions.
This is what Paul says in Galatians, where he talks about the fruits of whatever he calls it, and it's things like this. His list is very much like this. And then, but we can also have the fruit of the Spirit. And there's no law against that. Agape love, kindness, generosity, patience, endurance, self-control. Yeah, all those things. And
we can get, and one of the things about external activities, which are important, is that we can get focused on those external things and think about heart matters. It's from our heart that flows stuff. And Jesus will no doubt talk about that in the other gospels, especially in Matthew. When he's Sermon on the Mount. And it's not to say that the Jewish Pharisees and leaders wouldn't have known this. They would have understand this. I mean, they read their law, about the heart being hardened. Jesus had to redirect them. You're getting off base here. Pastor Boys, you need to get back to the base of any other questions. So now I want to just point out something that Wright pointed out. I think just to kind of be aware of this up here. Where is this at? Verse 19, when it says it goes into the sewer, remember, since it enters not the heart, thus he declared all food clean. Okay, so Mark is writing to the Gentile audience and saying, all food is clean. Okay, wait a minute. Let me give you a wait a minute here. Jewish believers said, that's not how we follow. We believe in this Jewish Messiah, but that's not how we're seeing it. Okay, so there's this little something there. Okay, we need to understand Mark is declaring all food is clean, but Wright wondered, is that him just saying that? Or is, because Jesus didn't say it. Okay, thus he declared all food clean. Jesus didn't say all food is clean. Mark is making that what I believe is an interpretation to the Gentiles. And so from what I see there, it's possibly that Jewish believers are saying you got to do this, this, and this, and like, no, you don't. Paul actually says this same kind of argument later on, but he never comes out and says Jewish believers have to eat pork. Okay, and that's, I just want to point that.
Say that again.
That Jewish believers could still decide not to eat pork.
Right.
And-
In the three, I guess there were three places that this is talked about. Peter in Acts, his dream, and then going to see Cornelius. Nowhere does it say you have to eat these foods. It just says no longer do you have to worry about eating these foods.
And I think that's important for us to understand. So especially if you have a community where you have Jews and Gentiles, issues of conscience come into play, you honor that, and but I just want to throw that at you because that's a little interesting point that I think Mark is also implying that he's talking to. That's just a little scholarly thing.
Does that come down to also, I can't hold against some other denomination of what they believe. What they believe, and that's okay. It's not that I need to argue because each of us individually choose, right? Does all that make sense? And so that it's okay if you believe differently. It's okay if you worship God differently.
It's a 2,000-year struggle that churches have, and essentials and non-essentials. And we're going to keep having that. If Jesus doesn't return back for 2,000 more years, I hope he comes out before then. We'll probably still, 4,000 years from now, be having discussions about the essentials and the non-essentials. If Jesus doesn't come back, this is just a slide. This is extra.
No charge.
Extra credit.
And I don't know when Jesus is coming back, okay? But if let's say Jesus doesn't come back for like 20,000 years, you know what? We would be considered part of the early church.
We really would
First
be.
2,000 years would be, think about that. Think about that, guys. We'd be part of the early, how we pastors are at the early church. We would be the early church. Okay, so that's something separate. Okay, let's move on.
It just depends on how long it takes.
Just long as it takes.
It's all relative.
So you're saying he hasn't come back
We're-
yet because
we're
of
the
the demons,
elders.
right? The demons that kept him back. So not hard.
Yeah, it's like, so, some, let's just say Jesus is back for 20,000, whatever now years, and they find this recording and they pull this out, some tall, skinny dude about the church and
You can see what they had on.
so let's hope Jesus returns quickly. So that's the real, but we don't know. But isn't that kind of cool to think that okay, let's move on. So anything else about that, guys? Any thoughts on that? We could go deeper in it, but it does connect with the heart of the matter. And the truth is, Jesus is pulling that out of the Old Testament. He's already said, you do these things, but with your heart, you do not honor me. You just do not. And so, Jeremy Zeller has that song, "The Kingdom of God is here." Beautiful song. And this is what he's focused on in that song about inside. What flows out of the inside. Learn to live from within inside. That taps right into what, getting in touch with what's going on here. Long before let's just say, who am I going to pick on? Okay, let's say I get mad at Bob, and long before I decide I'm going to punch Bob, not that I'm going to ever do that. I've already punched Bob in my heart. I need to deal with that. That's what Jesus would say. And so.
Any feelings negative feelings you have against others, it's like killing them in your heart, isn't it?
And it makes you vulnerable to forces outside you that could hurt you. Any questions? Thoughts? Well, once. Becky, Ying, anything? All
No.
right, well,
I'm listening.
I'm
Listening.
good.
Listening.
All right, well, let's move on to the next section. This next passage is actually a fun passage. Okay. Okay, all the passages, but this is really fun. Okay, so now there he set out and went away to the region of Tyre, which most likely could be a blend of Gentiles and Jews out there. He entered a house and did not want anyone to know he was there. Yes, right. At this point, if you see Mark say what you know is going to happen.
Everybody's,
Yes.
everybody's gonna show up.
Yet he could not escape notice. But a woman whose little daughter had an unclean spirit. Here we go again, another exorcism. Immediately heard about him, and she came and bowed down his feet. Now, Mark goes out of his way to say something. This woman was a Gentile of Syrophoenician origin. He's very particular now. Now, remember, Jesus had crossed over to Gentile territory, the Gerasene area. It was never made clear that this dude was a Gentile, but we could tell with the pigs and everything. This time, we're getting directly that Jesus is encountering a Gentile. Okay, sisters, so let's imagine a woman Gentile right now. So I'm going to let y'all be the star of the show right now, Donna, Rhonda. Imagine your child is in brutal situation. And you've heard about the Jesus. Hey guys, it's possible that this Gentile woman may have heard it from the Jews. Maybe she heard it from, the dude that was roaming around the other part of the side of the countryside after he'd been cast out all those demons. I don't know. She begged to come cast out the demon out of her daughter. And Jesus says to her, let the children be fed first, for it's not fair to take the children's food and throw it to the dogs. Ouch. Let that linger for a little bit. You have just heard from Jesus, the Jewish Jesus. I need you to help come, my daughter. Let the children be fed first. It's not fair to take the children's food and throw it to the dogs.
What does that mean?
I'll tell you this. One thing that Jews that were dogs, you would find in writings that they refer to Gentiles as dogs. And dogs weren't, they just were dogs.
Well, they weren't pets.
They weren't pets. Now, I also say the Gentiles also say cruel things about the Jews. So there wasn't it was back and forth. There was some stuff. So what's going on here?
But what is it? Is it saying that if the children don't eat first, then the adults eat and whatever's left is thrown away? Or well, I don't know.
On my grandparents' farm,
I'm sorry.
on my grandparents' farm, they had dogs. Now they did give him kibble, right? But after every meal, whatever was left over, if it wasn't a lot, if it wasn't enough to make another meal out of, they would give it to the dog. And so that was, it wasn't enough for anybody else. Maybe it was the ends of things, the pieces nobody really cared for. And she would add it to the dog's bowl on top of the kibble that was already in there. And that's how they fed the dogs. Now they had kibble. Back then they didn't have kibble. So the only way to feed the dogs is to give them whatever was left over after all the humans had the chance to eat.
Okay, but that's I don't understand.
The woman is
They're
asking.
saying let them eat first. They don't let them eat with everybody else. I don't know.
I mean, they're not going to be.
Well, the
That's a
Gentiles
good
and the
point.
Jews don't eat together.
Huh?
Gentiles and Jews don't eat together.
They wouldn't be eating together. I mean, it doesn't,
Like
the Mosaic law says they
What does this have to do with a woman's sick daughter? Like, we've just gone
Still
from
lost
history.
at what he's saying.
Yeah.
She's got a daughter who's sick and Jesus is like,
that's what I want you to
Feed the
focus on.
kids.
Him. Like, I want you to think about this. You are a mom. You've heard about this guy who showed a lot of compassion, and you want him to come. You believe. I mean, think about this. She says, she begged him to come cast the demon out of her daughter. In other words, she knew he could do that. This wasn't like some of the disciples who were struggling with who this dude was. Okay. Is Jesus being a little prejudiced here? Is Jesus, what is going on here? I'm asking that question because I hope people have read this text. I've had people read this text. Well, Jesus is being prejudiced here.
Yeah, because it makes it sound like the first priority is healing Jewish kids.
Yes, feed the,
But I
feed the
think,
Jews first.
I don't know what it is, I don't understand, but I think there was a purpose behind it.
He uses the term children,
Mhm.
and the only ones that at that point we were talking about were God's children.
For some reason, I'm thinking of, in Acts, in Simon, what's his name? Who wants to buy what Paul can do.
Oh, yeah.
You remember this story?
Peter, he must buy what
What Peter can do. Peter's healing people and everything. And Paul, this guy wants to buy that. He wants to learn how to do it. And so that he can go and do it too. Because he was kind of in that profession. And he wants to buy this ability from Peter. So his interest wasn't, I mean, he believed in the ability, but his interest wasn't in following Jesus or recognizing that it came from God. It was in this ability, it was just in the ability itself. And he thought it was something he could get from Peter. And I'm thinking about that. We don't have as much context about this, but is that what he's doing? Because, he's healed the Gerasene man. He's a Gentile, right? And of course, he's done other things among the Jews. Is this just, he's actually kind of testing her in the sense of, are you just coming to me because I'm a miracle worker?
This is good for us to chew on this. So we do know from the Gospels, Jesus's primary mission was not to the Gentiles. His primary mission, as we've been reading Wright, was to come and fulfill what Israel could not do to the Jewish people. Now, there are moments, so let's also remember something else. Remember, Jesus did go out of his way to cross a sea that tried to kill him. Remember the winds and the waves, he had to quiet. He goes into Gerasene territory, into the tombs. He goes out of his way to help a guy who is, how many demons?
Legion.
A legion, thousands. So he goes out of his way. So it's like, okay, we got to remember that. He had already done this. So another thing, so let's say, I'm going to pick on you again, Emily. Let's say, Emily, you come to me, all right, and you're saying this, but what Mark does not talk to us about is what Jesus' nonverbal face clues were. Let's just say, Emily, let's say I'm going to play Jesus. You asked me that question, just what this woman asked. Would you come and
cast the demons out of my daughter?
And notice what I do. It's not fair to throw the food. It's not fair to take the children's food and throw it to the dogs.
To which I would just go, huh?
Yeah. See, I'd be a little smile there. Maybe there was a little right in place, and maybe Jesus is doing a little glimpse, and that little joke.
Okay, so what you're saying, the children are the Jewish people and the dogs are the Gentiles.
Yeah, they would have referred to. Understood. This was a common Jews and Gentiles would call each other names. But the children here is pretty obvious from what we read in the other Gospels are the children. Jesus came to first the children of Israel. When you read the Gospels, he's spending more of his time into Jewish territory. In fact, when he sends out at one point, he sends out the disciples stay within the Jewish land. He's trying to restore, remember, the kingdom of Israel.
This doesn't make a bit of sense.
It doesn't, does it?
I feel like there's just not enough information.
I
This particular story isn't fleshed out enough to really help us understand. It's like we get I feel like the disciples.
Yeah, what are you talking about?
Remember, Mark is probably sending this to the Gentile believers in Rome, and they're probably thinking, what the world is Jesus talking about here?
Isn't she, I mean, first let the Jews eat what they want, so it's like, let me help the Jews first,
Yeah,
and then I'll come over here and get the Gentiles.
like there's not enough
Second.
to go around. Or
Yeah.
something.
And then she said, well, even the Gentiles under the table eat the crumbs that the Jewish people, children got. So it's like,
Well, let's move on then.
It doesn't make sense because, I mean, Jesus went to the woman at the well right off at the beginning of his
Right.
ministry.
That's in the book
I mean,
of John.
it's like
this is the book of John, that's not here.
We're gonna let that be in John.
he's dodging a Gentile woman's request here by saying that. He's dodging her request.
But at the same time, he's making her stand up for it.
Yes. And she does.
And she
What
has
is that
request.
Syrophoenician?
Syrophoenicia.
Yeah, what is?
It
Says she's,
It's in
she was Greek.
And
A
think
race
about
in
the
Greek.
many that she comes back and says, "Sir, sir,"
Sir,
or Lord. That can be translated as Lord. Even the dogs under the table eat the children's crumbs.
So that means the Gentiles will get it
They're going
eventually.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, she's
it's a-
saying that. What she doesn't know is Jesus's long-term mission.
Right.
We know by the end of Mark what his long-term mission is. He's got to fulfill the work in Israel so that God can take the work to the nations. But right now, this is about that. But I want you to know what Jesus does. He said to her, "For saying that, you may go. Your demon has left your daughter." Everybody think closely. I want you to think about this. Pharisees and Sadducees have just been coming to Jesus, arguing with Jesus. Everybody else is arguing with Jesus. Has Jesus lost an argument up to this point?
No,
Has Jesus given in to anybody who were
not that we've seen, no.
the only one that Jesus gives into, based upon what she says, is a Gentile woman? I think that's kind of important.
Which makes me think he was doing something more when he said what he said to her.
He was testing her.
Testing her motive.
Well, I'm not sure it goes so far as testing because I don't know there's enough evidence there, but it is like that. There's something more that he's trying to maybe bring out an awareness in her of
Yeah.
what's going on.
Yeah. It's trying to get her to think.
And what we don't have is it was Jesus winking at her. Hey, if you were saying it to me as a Gentile woman,
Because we know how Gentiles and
Yeah.
Jews deal with each other.
And she's like, yeah, I got the joke, Jesus.
Yeah.
I got into the knowing this. But I also want to point out something. Her faith is a
Really
part.
interesting. Sorry, really interesting is first of all, the Gentile, the lady, she doesn't matter. She just feels she needs to cry out. Doesn't matter. She's not Jew. She broke that into it. Asking Jesus Christ to help her daughter. You know what I mean? Is that right? I think that, she just broken the law, quote unquote. Went to Jews say, I need help. I need to get help. Anyway, that's just I'm thinking. Anyway.
Becky, do you have anything you want to add?
Not at this point. I'm still trying to absorb it all.
Okay. Like all those Gentiles.
Oh, Gentiles.
what you just said is maybe he's like, you have to have faith first.
And you
Okay, in the midst
Like
of
you made a
all of
point
this,
with
You
her.
have to understand
And
the
she
plan.
got it.
Right.
and in the
Yeah.
midst of all of this, we have what was
Come through.
What?
where it talks about the scripture up here. What is
Yeah.
what they call it,
Commentary.
commentary. It says here. What he's saying, what they're saying, he's saying here is that during a meal, one does not stop to feed the house pets.
Right.
So how are we supposed to get all of that from what we have that we read without reading 12 different books all the time?
And as we've always said through the many classes we've gone through, Dallas, one of the things in our Gentile tradition, we forget, in the Jewish tradition, the teachers and rabbis were important. These kinds of community settings where you would bring in commentaries and people, it was, you would bring it in. And so, but you're right. It's hard for us to get this because this is an ancient thing. We haven't gone back in time. But if I take the text as is, we already know a couple of times, or at least once, Jesus has jumped on the disciples. They don't get it. You remember that?
Yeah.
But in the meantime, what happens with us now is most of the time we just skip over this because
We don't.
We don't
get it.
we don't
understand it.
get it.
Yeah.
So we don't even delve into
Yeah.
any of the
It's just
any of
another-
what we're well delving into.
Yeah,
So
just
maybe
another week,
maybe
so.
part of our growth is to stop and investigate, ask the questions, come to the classes, do some research. It's all out there. To get into a group like this, where you go back and forth and listen to an NT Wright and ask the questions, okay, why should be calling it? And you could even ask, even if you had no historical context, you could say, why is Jesus calling her a dog?
Could it be though that Jesus understood? I mean, he wasn't blind to what was going on in the world
No.
with the politics, in the social setting. And maybe he was just using a situation that she would understand.
That's a good point.
And bring her to the point where, yeah, I have faith that we're all entitled.
That's a good point, that she already knew her place with the Jewish people. She understood how the Jews saw her.
Yeah.
So maybe Jesus is just saying something to her that she already knew.
Or you believe that she
and she probably,
understood.
instead of a little smile, yeah, that's true, Jesus, but hey,
Yeah.
the crumbs go to the dogs. And I know you Jewish people give food to your dogs. And remember, this woman needed her child to be healed. This was an act of desperation. And I want to also say, from what I see, when I first read this over a few years chewing on it, not even knowing the context, the disciples are like, you don't get it. And this woman seems to get it pretty quickly. You just come do that, it'll happen. And the only person up to this point that Jesus gave in on an argument that seemed to give in was to a Gentile woman.
She is saying that with the crumbs, the Gentiles are going to get it.
They're going to get something.
She is saying that.
And then we know from 2,000 years, unfortunately, the house becomes dominated by the Gentiles and not the Jews anymore. We're reading this as Gentiles, but predominantly the body of Christ is dominated right now by Gentile believers, not Jewish believers. So there was a shift. This is good. This wrestling is good for us because when we get hit with the text, it's good for us to wrestle as a community because it makes us go a little deeper. It makes us think about how they saw things. I said you guys would have fun, didn't I?
Yeah, so they say for saying that you might go, the demon has left your daughter. Actually, so Christ believe, Christ said, you believe with me, you see? Your face. So that's it. You go home. Your daughter, demon left her. Because you believe.
And notice that and it says, go home, your daughter's healed. She's like, okay. She doubts. You're right. There's no doubt. There's no like this. There's a similar story in another part of another gospel that's similar to this. So
if the Gentiles believe that their children had demons, then that tells me they may have believed in God as well. If they believed in demons.
And Jesus is it's spreading around. It's Tyre Phoenicia would be a farther part of this region. He's up in Tyre, which is up there in north
It's on the,
west on
it's
the
on the
coast,
Mediterranean coast.
that area. So he's already up in that area. It's spread around. Somehow she heard. But if you're a parent, you will go whatever to help your child. You know what I'm saying? You'll do whatever's necessary.
You will travel, you will find
You will,
money.
if you will rob from somebody, if you will spend 5 hours on a call with the insurance company saying you will do this. And I want to lean, as I've seen Jesus in context, I just want to think that Jesus was like, I wonder if he was thinking, you are one strong person of faith. He is going to say it in another gospel about the centurion. Say in Matthew, when he comes to ask for a servant to be healed, I've never found faith in all of Israel like this. And this is the story here. What I see is a woman that beat Jesus in an argument. Okay, maybe not beat Jesus, but was able to kind of, Jesus throws something out. She comes back and Jesus like, for that answer, you're good.
And that may be what they're searching for.
Yeah. Remember,
somebody that got it.
Yeah.
He had already been saying to the Pharisees leaders, from your heart comes yucky stuff.
Right.
This woman's heart.
That was Jesus' clever way of finding out what she believed.
Who said Jesus was clever? You're the one that said Jesus was clever, yeah. Anything else on this, guys? Did we wrestle enough on this one? Do we have enough fun?
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, I like to bring this up. When Jacob wrestled with God in Genesis for a long night, and that's when Jacob was named Israel, you guys know what the name Israel means. The one who wrestles with God and prevails. Part of being a child of God is you got to wrestle with the text. You wrestle with God's word. It's not going to come easy at times. Sometimes it's a meditative thought. Sometimes it requires, Jesus is going to ask us a question and we're going to be like, why is it every time I ask you a question, Jesus, you ask me a question? Or like Dallas said one time a few months ago when Pastor Karen was here and Dallas asked me a question, I asked a question back and he says, you're just like Pastor Karen. Do you ask? We get this from Jesus, okay? We wrestle, and that's how our faith grows. And I wonder if Jesus was just maybe wrestling with this child who will discover that she is also a daughter of God through Jesus God. Because the gospel will go to the Gentiles eventually, and Paul will say, you also are adopted children of God. You have the same access as everybody else. But until then, we had to deal with this one. All right, we got to move on because I can have too much fun. All right, so let's have a little more fun. You ready for some more fun? You ready for some more fun, Beth? Then he returned from the region of Tyre, but he went by the way of Sidon toward the Sea of Galilee in the region of Decapolis. Okay, the last time around the Decapolis, that's where he kind of went into that tomb territory. That's where all the that's where where we had the demon dude, okay? So they bring him a deaf man who had an impediment in his speech. So this dude could not hear and could not talk, a double whammy. And they begged him. We don't know who the they is. Is this Gentiles? Is this Jews? It's like Mark leaves it open on this one now. We knew it was a Gentile to start with, but now this is a little more open-handed. So he took him aside in private, away from the crowd. Okay, we're used to that. Okay, so the next time somebody asks me to pray for you, I'm going to do this, guys, to y'all. All right, well, the next time somebody says, no, I'm not gonna do this to you, I'm just joking. But it would be fun if like Kathy said, what I do, would you pray for me? And I do this. I put his fingers into his ears. So is it his ears
Yeah.
or the
The prepositions are a little,
yeah.
yeah.
So I'm assuming he's putting his fingers into the guy's ears. Okay.
I
This is
assumed
really
he did
fun.
his own.
Okay, now I have to stand up because this is really cool. Because remember, Jesus didn't treat everybody the same. Not everything. And then he spit. Now, did he spit on the man? It doesn't say that, but always says he spit and he touched his tongue. Okay, did he touch his tongue with his tongue or did he touch his fingers? So
Yeah, how can he do?
put his fingers on the tongue.
Yeah.
It's fun. I mean, I think it's cool. Right? This is fun.
It's confusing.
Jesus is so funny.
I don't think you should do that to anyone.
You think you're in? Because
Not you, right?
No spitting.
so it'd be best not to do that.
I feel like that's an HR issue.
That would be the death. I would be getting a call from my DS that day. Which tells me, at least, Jesus never treated every situation the same, it seems. Sometimes he would heal by a word. Sometimes he would heal by, speaking. Sometimes heal by forgiving. Sometimes he'd heal by casting out a demon. In this setting, he does this. Then looking up to heaven. Now this gets better. He sighs. I'm glad Mark tells everybody sigh. And said him. And it's interesting they translate this Aramaic phrase. And I'm not going to try to pronounce it. You want to give it a try, Ron?
It's Ephatha.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
Ephatha.
It's like afafa. It means be opened. And immediately, there's your word there, Donna. Immediately, his ears were open, his tongue was released, and he spoke plainly. He wondered what he said after that point. Jesus, you're so funny, but I can talk. I don't know. And then Jesus ordered him to tell no one once again. The more he ordered them, the more zealously they proclaimed it. They were astounded beyond measure, saying, he's done everything well. I think there's a hymn that says that. He does everything well. There's no hymn or something like that. He makes even the deaf to hear and the mute to speak. That was an important verse to me a few days ago.
Yeah.
Once again, Jesus shows his compassion. So we had a story about a Gentile woman, daughter exorcism, and then healing story. So remember, this is what Mark is showing to us. Jesus is teaching, he's doing exorcisms, he's healing. Right? At this point, the disciples should have got it. Don't you know who they are? You should know who they are. Any questions? All right, you remember we had a feeding story. Guess what? Now we get another feeding story. And so basically, he's teaching, I have compassion for the crowd because they have been with me now for 3 days. So this crowd must have followed him all the way up to that region, I guess. The scripture's not clear. All we know is they've been there for 3 days. That's when, when I do this sometimes, I get to the end and I'm like, okay, I'm coming to the close and I just keep on and on.
You never do that.
Or like when I'm teaching, I do that a lot and I just can't stop talking. Like trying to get out the door and like, I'm just quiet. For 3 days, he's doing this. He says, if I send them away hungry, here's our compassion. They will faint on the way, and some of them have come from a great distance. Okay, now guys, everybody think now. We've been here before, haven't we?
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you were disciples, one of you would say, we've been here before. We have been here before. Okay, let's say it again. We have been here before. And they say, how can one feed these people with bread here in the desert? we have been here before. And they asked that question.
You don't remember.
He asked, how many loaves do you have? I wonder if they still have some bread left over from the last time. We have been here before. They said 7. He ordered the crowd to sit down on the ground. He took the 7 loaves, and after giving thanks, he broke them, gave to his disciples, and they spread it out. He had a few small fish. He blessed them. They were distributed. They ate and were filled. And this time, instead of having 12 baskets left over, they had how many?
7.
You got 2 holy numbers, 12 and 7. Now, there were about 4,000 people. And he sent them away. And immediately got into both disciples and went to the district of Dalmatia. Okay. Jesus didn't say anything then. Notice that? He didn't say he jumped on their cases. He didn't say, he just did it. I wonder if that was a teaching moment to let that simmer for a little bit. They still ask the question.
Well, they didn't get it the first time. Am I going to get it this time?
All right, so then Mark decides, well, let's do a story in here. So remember Mark and sandwiches. Mark will sometimes introduce an idea or story, insert something, and then close it up. So we have a somewhat of a Mark and sandwich here. The Pharisees came and began to argue with him, asking him for a sign from heaven. I'm thinking to myself, how many more signs do you need, dudes, to test him? But what they wanted was like this, Bob. They wanted to be like this kind of sign. Bob, what I want you to do is I want you to take that cup right there. I want you to make it rise up, turn over, then fly away. And then when Emily gets home, she's going to find that cup in her house. That's the, sign like that. But if you remember your Old Testament, how many times were the children of God in the desert after God was asking for signs? Right? And what does Jesus say? Why does this generation ask for a sign? Truly I tell you, no sign will be given to this generation. Jesus is not happy, does he? And he left them and get into the boat again. He went across the other side. Okay, so he does this. He gets out of the boat and then he gets back into this boat and he starts talking about this. Now the disciples had forgotten to bring any bread. Okay. Are y'all getting this? You've seen this thing? Feeding thousands, feeding some more. Now they forgot bread. And he cautioned them. Here's a good one, Carol. Let's see if he said, watch out, beware of the yeast of the Pharisees and the yeast of Herod. What? They said to one, is it because we have no bread? I'd be the same way. What's that talking about? And becoming aware of it, Jesus said to them, what are you talking about having no bread? Do you still not perceive or understand? Are your hearts hardened? Do you have eyes and fail to see? And if I was sitting there, I'd be like, yeah. Do you have ears and fail to hear? Yeah. And do you not remember when I broke the 5 loaves for the 5,000? How many baskets full were left over? Did you collect? 12. Okay, I don't know if that's what they did, but this is fun. And the 7 for the 4,000. How many baskets full of broken pieces did you collect? And they said to him, 7. He said, do you not understand? A lot there. What do y'all think going on?
Mark doesn't include their answer to his question. Do you still not understand?
What did you say, Emily?
Mark doesn't include their answer.
He doesn't, yeah.
He just includes the question and then we move on.
Moved on.
Yeah.
So
I think they're almost trying to be too smart.
in what way?
Well, I just remember youth group days, and some of the when I was a sophomore, some of the senior guys, they thought they were really clever. And they were too, but sometimes they really thought they were really clever. And so something would be happening and they'd make something out of something that wasn't there. So like Jesus starts talking about the leaven of the Pharisees and Herod, and they're like, hey, what's he talking about? Why is he bringing this up? Is it about the bread? They're trying too hard.
Trying too hard. You got the yeast, the leaven. So you remember before that scene here, they were asking for a sign. They had a particular way they wanted this done.
Well, that's true too.
But rightly so, they didn't have any food. That's an important issue, you know. Hey guys, I mean, am I gonna let you guys starve? I mean,
It is interesting. Now, I'm not sure how the Pharisees, what they knew or didn't know about the feeding of the thousands. But in terms of Mark telling this story, the Pharisees are asking for a sign right after Jesus fed the thousands. It's like, here's a sign, but you're asking for a sign.
That's
You're
not,
not
that's
being-
not the kind of sign I wanted.
They're looking for the wrong thing.
Yep.
can I say it again?
They're looking for the wrong thing.
In fact, Wright says something on that.
Yeah.
On this paper, if you read Wright, he said, first of all, he says, nothing like this has ever happened before. I mean, these different thousands of people twice. And Mark, we can excuse them for being a bit slow in the uptake. He seems to emphasize that the feedings, along with healings, are ways in which Jesus' identity as the true Messiah was being unveiled. Okay. The other ones went a different way of unveiling. But since no first century Jew known to us were expecting a Messiah who would multiply loaves and fish, we can once more wholly blame them for that.
They were looking for a king, an emperor.
Yeah, they were. You remember Jesus keeping things quiet. We want a sign. What were they? What kind of sign were the Pharisees and scribes asking for? What were in the back of their thinking? What was their motive for asking that?
They wanted a king. They wanted somebody to
Take over.
To overthrow
take
Rome.
over and overthrow the government.
Mark goes on and says, try something you said, Beth. Now Jesus speaks of leaven, not to warn the disciples about the wrong sort of bread, but to put them on guard against the wrong sort of kingdom vision. Because you know what? I'm not a cook, but what does leaven do to bread? It
Makes it rise.
and so you
Well, it multiplies.
it
Yeah.
multiplies.
And so,
Puts air bubbles in it.
Yeah,
But
I'm,
as it grows, it gets
Yeah.
bigger and bigger. And
Yeah.
and I'm sure, you know, Jesus is saying, you know, you listen to the Pharisees, you listen to this, that's where your beliefs will grow.
It takes
You
time.
listen to me, that's where your heart will grow.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of looking. I think you're in tune with kind of what Wright's saying. So they want God to set up a kingdom for the benefit of Jews who can observe the law with great strictness. We've already seen that with the religious leadership. They're wanting these traditions that they've understood. They want it observed a certain way, not the benefit of the wider company Jesus has in mind. Because remember, he did heal the Syrophoenician woman's girl with the demon. If he was really, he could just say, get away from me, dog. He didn't do that.
he was going to be really strict. Yeah.
He didn't do that. He didn't play along with their interpretation of Mosaic law. But here's the question, do you not yet understand? And Emily, I wonder too, if I was in Rome reading that, I'd stop for a second and say, with what I'm going through, do I understand? You know, maybe Mark is inviting us all in as Gentile believers to say, what kind of vision do we have of God's kingdom today? Have we put a little bit of the yeast of the Pharisees and Sadducees into our kingdom that we have for Jesus?
Well, and here you have people that were common people, fishermen, and Jesus had sent them out to heal and to cast out demons out of people, like everyday fishermen go up and heal people. I mean, and they come back and like that didn't change their life any at all.
You know, sometimes I've been a preacher for many years and I've seen God do amazing things. And then it's like something bad happens, something comes up and it's like, I totally forget that.
That's a truth, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, we're grateful for a moment, but then
we let it
then
go.
life comes in and we forget.
But then also we don't hear anything more about the disciples healing people or casting out demons after that.
They just, and for Mark, it's just like they come back and Jesus says, let's go rest and let's, I love the fact that the good thing I love about this Jesus, he doesn't say to the disciples, you're fired.
Probably would have
I'm gonna
liked
find
to.
somebody else.
Huh?
Probably would have liked to.
Yeah, but at least he didn't say that. Imagine if let's imagine you're the employee, you're a supervisor, manager, and you've got these characters and this, I showed you this, I showed you this, I showed you this. You still talking about the bread? You're fired. Then fire.
Or look at him and go, you are so stupid.
And they were still hanging in with this dude. So they were also used to kind of that rabbinical tradition of back and forth asking questions. See, the asking of questions was never the issue. Back and forth. What we're doing now, guys, this is really good for us. This regular group meeting around scripture, this is what grows us, even if we don't get all the answers.
Is this not what happened in the temple when they would study the books?
Well, or just in the synagogue,
Right, right.
The rabbinical approach to teaching is
That's how they taught.
Beth says something, I play off on it. Emily says something, I do something. We're
The
going back and
scriptures
forth.
read to them because they didn't have it to read.
Right.
it was a scroll. They learned how to read it though, but they took their turns.
Because remember, the psalmist says in Psalms, the righteous man is one who meditates on God's word day and night. And he is like a tree that's planted by the water. Meditating is chewing, wrestling, thinking, not just an individual, but in a group context. That's why small groups are so important. I'm going to keep stressing that. That's why I would say the Wesleyan system worked so well. They were in the group weekly, going over scripture, letting it get into them, and asking the tough questions, and probably asking, and there's probably a Wesley leader too. I wondered if, or Susanna saying to John and Charles, do you not understand what I'm talking about, guys?
But
no, Mom, we don't.
No.
after Jesus died on the cross, they went out and preached. Did they go out and cast out demons? They did all this stuff. I mean, they were apprentices at this point.
Right.
But did it ever really dawn on them what they had been going through after Jesus died? Did that ever come to their realization?
What I will say, Kathy, I hope you're seeing this. I hope you are. For Jesus, he had to save the world.
Yeah.
But what did he do? He started with 12 people. He started with a small group. Yes, he was out preaching thousands and all that, but when he really got down to explaining things, it was a few people. John Wesley caught that. Churches, I think that's something the Lord's dealing in my heart. I've talked to Carol about this. We got to get back to this intentional small group gathering weekly around Jesus the Messiah. It's like residents, I've been running, I've been going through ER, and those poor residents, gosh, the
medical residents.
What they put them through, these
I was gonna say in the 90s.
The 90s, they're just like, they don't sleep, they're getting jumped on all the time, they're not doing this right, they're not doing that right. So that, like Emily says, it ends with Mark at this section. This is where we're going to end. Do you not yet understand? But I think Jesus is maybe talking to all of us.
I'm reading here about how this is page 77. Wright's making the point that in the middle of this piece, this section, he's quoting from the prophet Jeremiah 5:21. And it's a poetic, he's saying this isn't just a poetic way of saying, I can't believe how blind you are. It's a way of saying, because of their knowledge of the scripture and what was going on in the book of Jeremiah, the scroll of Jeremiah, He's saying, you're in danger of going the way of the Israelites in Jeremiah's day.
That's good, Rhonda.
And what he's saying was, what was the problem in those days? Much like the problem Jesus saw with the Pharisees and with Herod, people were so caught up with their own concerns, I would even add, what they had figured out, how to make it work or fix things, and so unconcerned about injustice and wickedness in their society that God had no alternative but to abandon them to their fate at the hands of foreigners. If they effectively worship other gods, those other gods and their devotees will have power over them. That, as we shall see, lies near the heart of Jesus' warnings against his contemporaries. They're worshiping things, the things that come out of the heart. You know, they're worshiping things that are gonna, God's just gonna throw up his hands and leave them to that. And he's calling the disciples to something different.
I want to go back into, this is a good point there, Rhonda, because that ties into something. So let's go back into the Old Testament. You have the garden scene. Humans are kicked out. You think God's going to abandon, the 11 chapters of Genesis. You've got humans in the garden, you've got the Nephilim issue, then you've got this Tower of Babel, and you think God's like done with it. No, he calls Abraham. So he's going to call a group of people, and through that group of people, he's going to draw the world back to him. Well, guess what? It gets off track. So Jesus comes on the scene, and he's got to fulfill these promises. He started with these people. God's a God of covenant. He's going to keep his promises. That's actually good to me as a Gentile. I'm glad to know Jesus first came for the Jewish people, because that tells me God keeps his promises, which means as a Gentile, I can trust God's promises. He's going to be faithful there. But Jesus comes on the scene, and he is in a hurry. Like you said, Donna, I've got to get this on track. What began a long time ago, so that you people would become the light to the Gentiles, that you would become the tool by which I draw the whole world back to me.
Jesus is desperate for them to get this.
Yeah, this is
because he's going to be gone.
Yeah, his time is
He knows
urgent.
his time is up.
and something Wright says, he says, it's urgent that they get the message. Jesus can see the signs, and so can we, of growing hostility. It's vital that the disciples realize soon now what he's doing and why. Because the time will shortly come when they'll have to go to Jerusalem with a mission, because they're on their way. They're going to eventually, Mark's going to shift, and they're going to be on their way to Jerusalem. And with a mission, not of feeding hungry people, that's not a hungry form of Jesus. He has compassion, but of challenging the heart of the system. And the system does not want to be challenged. Nobody's systems want to be challenged. And so we end here with a Jesus who's not given up, because he's got a call from the Father. He's called these 12. He's got some other people around him. He's still got a little time, but like you said, Donna, he's running out of time. He knows, he sees things. Because remember, guys, this is not just about what's happening at the human level. There are things going on in the demonic, unseen level. Two forces are about to converge. And any other comments, questions for anybody? And I hope this was fun. So next time, session 4.1, we're going to read up to Mark 9:37. We're going to read up to Mark 9:37 and up to page 91 of Wright's book. So up to page 91 of Wright's book and up to Mark 9:37. We're getting close, okay? Just getting close. Remember, no human being has declared yet what Mark declared at the beginning, but we're getting close. Okay, we're getting close. Everybody understand? There's a climax about to happen, and then when it happens, you're like, oh, you gotta be joking. But we'll hang with that for a little bit. All right. Anything, Becky or Ian, before we go?
Thank you so much. I enjoy it. Yeah.
Good.
I'm still pondering.
Okay. You can
Yeah,
ponder,
in Florida,
Becky.
pondering.
Pondering down in Florida. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate that.
All
Okay,
right, well,
thank
I'll
you.
talk to you guys later. We'll see, same bat channel, same bat,
Fine.
okay.
Take care.
Like,
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.